Hello and welcome to my first ever video. I am, of course, Bruhman, and today I will be sharing my Elden Ring character build, Aurbis the Open-Eyed, the all-powerful sorcerer and devotee of the Greater Will. Elden Ring is an absolutely massive title in more ways than one. It is, of course, one of the largest open-world games on the market, with vast lands to explore and countless dungeons to meticulously pick apart. Beyond the world space, Elden Ring boasts an intricately woven story and a seemingly endless amount of lore. I mean, just look up Elden Ring lore on YouTube and try not to choke when you see a 13-hour-long video titled Part 1. Thank you, Smofftown. We appreciate it. You see, I'm a gamer, particularly an RPG gamer. I spend hundreds of hours sifting through lore videos and reading source materials for games such as the Witcher book series. I do this just to write stories for my characters and to get into their heads or understand a pre-written character better. Despite my love for RPGs, I had never played Elden Ring until just a few months ago. And oh boy, when I got my hands on this game, my mind went crazy with character ideas, story progression diversity, and of course, FromSoft's specialty, different combat playstyles. During my first playthrough, I couldn't wait to start my second. I looked forward to no-lifing Fudge Muppet-style character builds on YouTube and scrolling on Reddit for hours reading about different people's characters and their role-playing. But, to my dismay, there is none that I could find. I couldn't have been more disappointed. What had seemed like such a gold mine, one that a vast community has had 2 years to dig deep into, had turned up dry. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of quality videos on class builds on YouTube, but those sorts of videos almost always touch on technical stuff like skill placement and weapon guides, not the meat and potatoes of story writing. So here I am, for the few who are interested, presenting to you an Elden Ring roleplay build. Before we dive into things, I want to throw a few disclaimers your way. First of all, the lore and world building in this game seems almost beyond comprehension sometimes. I've watched plenty of videos and currently spend most of my free time playing, but there is still so much that I don't know, and I'm sure that there is more than one inaccuracy in my story, so please feel free to correct me when you can. I'd love to learn more from you guys and make my future characters more lore accurate. At the end of the day, I do this for fun, so I mean no offense if I get things wrong, and in no way am I declaring that I am all-knowing concerning Elden Ring. With that out of the way though, let's get into things. To truly know anyone, you must know their past, so we'll start there. Aurbis the Open-Eyed is a young man, or woman if that's your playing preference, who was raised in a small clan of astrologers who referred to themselves as the Open-Eyed. Just to clear up any confusion, I'll note here that this group does not exist in-game or canon. I made them up to build Aurbis' story. The Open-Eyed were a curious group of sorcerers who wore matching robes and tattoos on their foreheads and lived a closed-off and ascetic lifestyle. They were unaffiliated with the Carians and by extension the Academy of Raya Lucaria, though they still practiced glintstone sorceries and sometimes met with the academics to trade theories. The astrologers were of course people who saw fate in the stars, though the Open-Eyed believed that star reading was proof that life was most pure when laid bare. They didn't close their eyes to the darker facts of life. They valued truth, action, and honesty above all else. This small group of astrologers believed that the Carians had looked too far beyond the stars and fate, and within their sorceries were too carried away practicing spells they could utilize in daily life and war. The Open-Eyed astrologers were wholly devoted to the Erdtree and the Greater Will, recognizing the fact that a god is the most pure being in existence, as they could manipulate anything to be true. They are the creators of truth, if you will. One night, under the open sky, and in deep prayer to the Greater Will, Aurbis foresaw the shattering of the Elden Ring. The vision gripped his entire person, with muscle convulsions and seizures. When he awoke, his hair had turned from a light blonde to a stark white, and his eyes had been glossed over with a gleaming, untarnished silver. While blasphemous under Marika's rule, he believed the vision to be true, and a message from the greater will, proof being his hair and eye transformation. His fellow astrologers agreed with him and dedicated to their philosophy that truth was more important than life. They spoke out about Marika's rule. For this, they were banished from the lands between, left with nothing but a small ship and rations. They set sail west from Liurnia, away from their home, content with wherever their pursuit of truth would guide them. The last thing Aurbis remembered before waking up in the game intro is sailing into a raging storm. As we move into the gameplay section of this video, I'd like to touch on Aurbis' appearance. As I mentioned in my story, Aurbis doesn't have to be a white dude like I played. The only important characteristics are his defining features. Of course, the stark white hair, the tattoo on his head, and his silver eyes. Everything else should be whatever feels right for you when playing. Now, being a gamer, you probably recognize that character motivation is probably the most important aspect of any roleplay. Questions like, why is my character going here and slaying demigods, or talking to this person, should always be at the forefront of your mind when playing. This section can be broken down into two parts, external and internal motivations. External being forces which compel your character, and internal being your character's actual interests and motivations. In order to define Aurbis' motivations, I'd like to read a short excerpt from a journal I was keeping while playing. It is his first entry, while he still knows very little about what exactly is going on. Imagine it being written during one of the first few nights after he awoke and left the first step. This will help shape your view of his motivations from his own eyes. Tarnished, or so I am called. Why? Has life not been returned to me in full? Or is it my actions which have delivered the title unto me? Life exists not because of grace, but as grace. I foresaw the dismantling of the ring, the shattering, as it is called. So did my brothers, and now they lie still. The seraphic breath of grace still grips my lungs, for I have been deemed worthy. I saw the truth, and they cast me out for it. Fools to call me unclean, whilst kicking and fighting in mud, writhing in self-proclaimed serendipity. I lived as a child of grace, and that shall not change. I saw the truth, and in disaster and decrepit instability, that shall not change. I am silver, unalloyed and bright, that shall not change. Sight is a demonstration of will. Perception is a demonstration of one's past. So what is truth? No one can know, for it cannot be seen. For if a man saw truth, it would be as he willed, and his perception of that will, well, we can call that tarnished. The only way to see truth is to close your eyes, and to know truth, you must stop striving to see. The gods casting me out for having seen shows that they are not gods at all. How can truth scare a god? They are but beasts with sharper teeth than the rest of them. Nothing more. Grace hath heralded my return, and I have come. As you heard, Aurbis is quite sure of himself. This assurance comes from an understanding that he and his fellow open-eyed astrologers knew better than others. This creates a very interesting situation throughout the game. Aurbis will almost always look at the NPCs you meet as fools. He will respect some, hate others, but almost always will perceive them as lesser. The only thing Aurbis believes to be greater is, of course, the greater will. The fingers and the Erdtree with that. Because of this, Aurbis is controlled mostly by external motivation. He has been brought back to life by grace, an extension of the greater will. So more than anything else, Aurbis serves his god's purpose. Everything he does in the name of the god who he believes showed him the vision of Marika shattering the ring, and also brought him back to life. I'd like to make a very important note here, that this might not even be true, even under the context of this story. Aurbis could have seen the vision for plenty of reasons, but due to his nature, he believes it to be a holy message from the greater will. This highlights a very fun part of Aurbis's playthrough. You will actively see the faults inherent in his devotion as you play them out. Now, concerning his internal motivation, this can of course be many different things and will likely vary from player to player depending on what quests you'd like to weave into your story. He may be driven to uncover the truths of the universe as Elden Lord, or it could be simply that he hates to see the world so out of control amidst the shattering. Seeing the wandering nobles who've gone mad with old age and decaying villages and just general messed up stuff that you see all throughout the lands between would deeply sadden him, and he'd want to set things right. From here on out, we'll be focusing on the actual gameplay aspects of this character, starting with combat style. When it comes to your combat build, we will be going for something interesting. Despite his actual faith in the greater will, Aurbis will be played as a very powerful sorcerer. We're talking full intelligence and mind specialization, with of course some points in vigor to avoid being one-shot. Once you hit around 60 to 70 intelligence, feel free to start dumping some points into vigor though to make it through the late game without too many complaints. Remember, Aurbis is wholly dedicated to truth, and in painful cognitive dissonance, he may believe anything declared blasphemous by the Golden Order is still okay. Aurbis would still use fire incantations if you'd like to go the faith route, and he wouldn't shy away from anything due to stigma. He may be wrong, I genuinely don't know, but he believes that anything possible is obviously true since it's happening, and therefore it is okay to talk about and use. Furthermore, he believes that anything in the world could not harm the greater will, so he isn't afraid of things like Ranni's questline, for example. Just a heads up, we're moving into spoiler territory here, so if that bothers you, go ahead and click off now. So you may be asking at this point, what are we actually going to be doing with Aurbis while playing? Well, I'll give you some guidance and examples. First off, he will help anyone he can, so do whichever quest lines you like at first. He is good-natured until he feels someone is becoming blasphemous towards the greater will. He would kill any who openly speak out against the greater will, as long as he feels he is able, meaning that he wouldn't openly attack Ranni, as she is a demigod. He would use her until he has an advantage over her. For example, he will help Ranni until he gives her the treasure of Nokron. At this point, he will free Blide from Iji's trap so that the baleful shadow can hunt her down and he will not continue her quest. This frees up the player to get some really powerful intelligence-related items from her questline, and it also ties off the story from a narrative perspective. He would also fully complete Sorcerer Selen's questline, pitying her at the end. I imagined him writing something in his journal like, "Never let obsession and hubris guide your path. Only the greater will and teachings of the fingers will keep you standing on your feet for longer than a moment." I'd also like to note here, once more, that he is okay with speaking against the Golden Order and other man-made or demigod-made institutions, as he believes them to not be of the greater will. He would condone questioning the status quo under any situation, and even dabble in blasphemous sorceries as we touched on before. He would not, however, be okay with anyone blatantly hating the greater will. As such, he would kill Vera as soon as he mentions turning against the Erd-tree at the Church of Roses, and of course, he would not join the Volcano Manor. Finally, Aurbis would choose to complete the Gold Mask questline and choose the Age of Order ending. This perfectly ties up the playthrough, cementing the greater will's control over the world, while removing the possibility of something like the Shattering to ever happen again. This will give purpose to his original vision, and I think it is a perfect end for this character. Now, with the bulk of things out of the way, I'd like to add an optional twist to the story that will add plenty of playtime if you desire. In his journey, Aurbis will eventually learn of or stumble upon the Three Fingers, as Aurbis strictly believes that nothing can hurt the greater will, and that the only thing of importance in life is truth. He will allow himself to be touched by the fingers. This, of course, will put the player on the sole path of the Frenzied Flame ending, which to an extent may be what Aurbis would do in that situation. Maybe he feels like real truth is chaos or something or other. Personally, though, I think that being touched by the flame would only act as fuel to his flame of devotion to the greater will. He'd see the chaos ending as an evil possibility and recognize that the greater will is actively saving them from that fate. He'd of course complete Millicent's questline, defeat Malenia in Placidus X, and use Miquella's needle to cure himself of the flame. This is how I played the story, and I think it was a lot of fun. Just be sure, however, that you're comfortable with fighting Malenia before adopting the flame, because if you can't beat her, then you have to do the Frenzied Flame ending. There's no alternative. About 45 minutes into attempting Malenia, I realized this and thought, well, crap, this playthrough's over. Eventually, though, I killed her and was able to continue. If you do decide to go this route, use Night Comet in this fight and thank me later. Alright, well that's all I got for you. Thank you for listening to my nerdy ramblings. I hope you have enjoyed, and at the very least got some inspiration to write your own Elden Ring characters. I love this kind of roleplay, so please leave your character concepts in the comments, and let me know if you'll be playing Aurbis the Open-Eyed. I'll be looking forward to reading all of the comments on this video. Also, I am already doing another playthrough with a written character, so if you're interested in more, hit that like and subscribe button. I hope you all have a fantastic time diving back into the lands between. I'll see you next time. Bruhman out.